My name is Elena Bidino. I work for the National Insurance Confederation in Brazil. We deal with all kinds of insurance, and my role there is consumer protection, microinsurance, international affairs are the main subjects. Countries like Brazil, we have a very huge amount of population that is lower class, and insurance is a tool that can protect them for vulnerability. And health insurance is the main product that anybody from different classes, but mainly for the poor people, they look for. And in Brazil, we have public health insurance protection, but the government cannot give them the quality and the speed of the services they need. So we also have the private insurance and plans and insurance company providers. We have both for both systems. The public, everybody is covered. The private sector covers more than 60 million people nowadays. But it's getting very expensive. So individual plan insurance is very difficult to find because it's getting too expensive. The government interferes in the price also. So nobody is happy. The population is not happy. The hospital, the doctors are not happy because they receive a very small amount. So you go to a doctor, they even can look at your face because they don't have time. So sometimes it's better the government treatment, although it takes time to receive it, but you have doctors that are there for this purpose. So it's very challenging. There is a lot of regulation, very heavy regulation, and we are afraid, as your deputy minister announced here, that too much regulation also can dismantle the small providers, and that is what can happen in Brazil. Regulation is the most challenging, and they should have more dialogue. The government with the private sector. We are in the same boat, and they should, even the private sector should listen the challenge of the government and the other side too. Should be more dialogue. And they want to protect so much the consumer. They are feeding the market with so many regulations and so many laws that is a costly consumers, because at the end of the day the consumer pay the bill.
I'm Segi Pillay. I'm from South Africa. I'm the Chief Executive of the National Health Laboratory Services. My own country, there's a big discussion and debate right now around the introduction of a national health insurance scheme. So we just got the green paper out. The Minister of Health has just put out a green paper, and all of us, including my own organization, are now beginning to take the first steps towards the implementation of some form of health insurance. The key issue is that the question of providing comprehensive health care for the citizens of particularly developing countries is possible if people apply their minds in a very strategic way. And I've seen many examples today of how small groups of people in partnership with governments and involving the citizens and beneficiaries of the program have been able to set up small and hopefully slowly can scale that up. So just in terms of the kind of key lessons here was the one is that it's becoming increasingly obvious that governments alone can't provide for the healthcare of all its citizens. There's a big question around an economic environment that makes it very difficult, but also with the competing needs of a country, choices have to be made. And I think one of the options that are available to us is that every citizen from a human rights perspective and certainly from my country, from a constitutional perspective, has a right to healthcare. But I think that there are models in which the citizens and government can work together to provide the financing base to deliver the kind of quality healthcare that people deserve. Many countries are trying to achieve the same thing. So the final destination is going to be the same, whether we're in South Africa, whether we're in Nigeria, whether we're in Ghana, whether we're in the Philippines. But obviously there are different routes that we can take to achieve this universal coverage. And there are important lessons for us to learn, both from industrialized countries like the Netherlands right now. There's huge successes, but there are also some weaknesses. I'm hoping that we can leapfrog stages of development. I hope that we don't have to walk every stage that the Netherlands, for example, went through. So I think from where we are sitting at the moment, there are opportunities for us to achieve much sooner what many of the industrialized and developed countries have taken a much longer time for us to achieve what we wanted to set out to do. So from that perspective, I think that there's no right model for any country. That's what I'm hearing from the presentations today. But the key issue is that whether you're starting off big, whether you're starting off from the top, or whether you're starting off from the bottom, really doesn't matter. I think it really depends on what is the economic base of the country and what is the skills base and what are the systems that we have. So while my own country may be choosing national health insurance scheme, and it basically is top down, but we've seen the examples in Nigeria, we've seen the examples in Ghana, we've seen the examples in the Philippines, for instance, where around small communities you slowly built up the base. But the important lesson from all of this, whatever small community-based alternative is set up or insurance scheme is set up, in the end, it must all be integrated in some kind of national universal coverage for all of the citizens of the country. The key issue is that there are a lot of innovation within communities. And even in poor communities, what we're learning is that people have resources. They may not have huge amount of resources, but they have some resources. And I think that if there are creative ways in which those resources can be pooled, then I think the lesson for policymakers is don't automatically assume that people don't have anything. Pool, whether it's the $1 or the 50 cents, but once you pool that, suddenly the problem doesn't seem as big anymore. But if you're looking at an individual and trying to respond to the individual, then it seems like it's insurmountable. So I think that's the first aspect. The second aspect about policymakers is allow these small pilot projects to evolve. Because out of these pilot projects, you learn both successes, but you also learn what you shouldn't do again. So I think that's the second side. And the third side is that it's important that governments all over in developing countries begin to create the legislative framework for all of this to happen, because you also don't want a national health insurance scheme. People contribute to that, but they actually don't get the benefit. And the benefit is really about providing affordable healthcare to the citizens. The objective of universal health insurance is not about collecting money. It's about ensuring that we can finance the healthcare that citizens are not getting right now.
I'm Sanjay Datta. I'm the Chief of Underwriting and Claims in ICICI Lombard, the largest health insurance company in India. We've developed a lot. We're a $1 billion company now. We've grown in various aspects of general insurance. But the biggest product with a lot of potential is health insurance. The market is growing very fast. Till last year, it was growing at 35% CAGR. And we work in all the three segments, which is the retail, corporate, as well as the insurance for the rural poor. We are one of the biggest insurance partners with the government for their financial inclusion programs. So there are 2-3 schemes which we run with the government. One is National Insurance Scheme for the poor, which is a smart card-based scheme which we run for the government. We believe access to quality healthcare at affordable prices is a fundamental right. as fundamental as human rights, actually. And, to play that part, I think, insurance has to play a big part in providing that access through financial mechanisms which work for such an access. And, India is a billion people, and most of them are very poor. And it's important for us to make sure that our processes and the kind of insurance products we develop for them are work on efficiency, which is technology based, where the costs are very low. The product is, has a high utilization rate and is sustainable in the long run. So that's what we've been working for. And of course, scale is an important part. And while we understand scale, we also feel that there's a need to customize products according to the various regions of India, because India is a union of about 28 states. In India, about 60% of healthcare costs are met out of pocket for outpatient treatment. Most of the health insurance products are for inpatient treatment. For a certain, group of privileged people who work as artisans and weavers, we developed a scheme where the lead product is an outpatient product, where the utilization rate, went up significantly once we adopted technology-based processes with no paperwork. And the scheme has started working very well. The enrollment rates have gone up, the retention rates have gone up, and it's all hinged around outpatient sort of clinics which work near the doorstep of the community. So we've innovated a lot in health insurance. Not only have we innovated in terms of processes, but also products. So we've brought in a lot of products which are, first in terms of, in all the segments of the population. So we've, brought in concepts like, floater sum assured for the families. We brought in concepts like, having outpatient treatment included as part of, the inpatient coverages. And of course, we worked a lot on, other products which are, like critical illness coverages, which are linked to bank home loan products, which normally have a lot of loss of income sort of elements to it. So, we devised a lot of, critical illness products or, hospital daily cash products. I believe, that insurers have to play a big part in, financial inclusion, given the fact that India is a very, very undersaturated market, and we can leapfrog, through the learnings of all the other countries in terms of what they attempted and what were the good practices, which we can bring, forth for our country and maybe for the population which we serve. Access to kind of these kind of conferences also helps a lot to pick up ideas, good ideas across the world, which we should be able to bring across to, good quality access to healthcare through the insurance system. Big idea, of course, is the fact that one needs to collaborate a lot. Healthcare is a complex system where every part of the social system is involved, including health policymakers, the academics, and various other sort of bodies. In fact, I was just mentioning to the director of ISS that a lot of the policymakers or people in academia are like navigators to us while we drive the car. So they help us a lot in driving in the right direction, because a lot of the thing is unknown. We are charting new territories, and that's where we need a lot of navigators to help us to drive correctly. I think they have to focus on the fundamental part, which is health risks. Health risks are as important as I said, fundamental rights. There needs to be mechanisms where health risks are properly pooled, at least the ones which cannot be borne by the individual in the long run. And the second and the most important part is, while we call it insurance, at the end of the day, it should seem like assurance. They need to, keep healthy, you remain healthy. In case something happens, there is someone to take care of things.
I'm Fola Laoye, chairman of HYGEA, which is an integrated health group in Nigeria, working with the Health Insurance Fund to deliver health insurance to low-income groups in the country. HYGEA was formed almost 30 years ago by my parents, who are both physicians, who also had their careers in the public sector and in public health. Then after they retired, went into the private sector, but still very much having the motivation and the commitment to helping to deliver public health services. We are able, at least in the work we're doing and with the partners that we have, to look at the very difficult issues of delivering public health services, but from a private perspective, which is quite unique and quite innovative. But in so doing, helping to bridge the gap between affordability, what people can afford, and what is the cost of healthcare. I think for me, one, growing up around the business and also where we got to, I did realize that there was a model to be sustained, that could be built and could be sustained and could be taken to scale. And I often think that in the private sector, we are able to sometimes be a bit more nimble and a bit more proactive in terms of looking at innovative ways to solve problems. Nigeria is a country that has large population and very poor health indicators, so that in itself is a problem. But going beyond that, also trying to build a health system for a country that's very disparate, that has many different cultures, very, geographically disparate, is quite difficult. But particularly made more difficult because of challenges of infrastructure, of human resources, of real capacity. And that's something that, health, needs to really be successful and viable. We do want to see stronger political will, one with a government putting a better financing structure for healthcare on the table. We are still severely underfinanced as a sector, but even apart from the financing, the regulatory side of it still needs a lot of work, needs a lot of commitment, needs a lot of capacity. And, and especially if the private sector is going to play a bigger role, it's very important, again, that there's a regulatory framework that governs what the private sector is doing. So, yes, it's an area that, is still nascent. And I, for one, I'm very hopeful that this current government will do a lot more. One important area is what is the cost of healthcare. So yeah, it may sound more quantitative than qualitative, but in a way it's linked because that also really gets us to understand what are the disease prevalences we're dealing with now. We all have heard and seen the numbers globally and even Pan-African for the incidence of non-communicable diseases and what that impact is on health systems. But I don't think we have done enough work and gathered enough data in Nigeria to be able to really holistically say, this is what it's going to cost and how do we tackle that. The work we've been doing with the Health Insurance Fund has actually almost brought that even more to the fore than we had thought it would.